Back. We are going to get into a run of Metal Gear Solid by Tyler2022 in just a second. But before we do, I have a couple donations that I want to read. These are carryovers from the Descent run that you just saw. We have a $1 donation from Tempest Mask 1000 who says, "So this game is about going down, is that correct? Down in an earlier round? Well, in that case, we're going down swinging. Thanks for showing off this game, Zell. It's always a pleasure seeing you around. Let's put this dollar towards Shovel Knight for that bid war." And then we also have another donation from Stealthfire101. It's a donation of $6.09, and it says, "Astronomy and speedrunning in one stream? Nice." So thank you both very much for those donations. But what we've got going on now, like I said, is Metal Gear Solid. It's being run by Tyler2022, and you have some couch commentary with you as well, yes?
Yes, I do. And today I am being joined by NickRPGreen.
Hello.
Yep. And for the category, to kind of do a brief explanation, this will be on the PC version, and we'll be doing 80% very easy, which has some other things that are kind of unique to it, which we will get into, but let's just get right into it. And the timer will begin in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
All right, here we go.
Yep.
So straight away, you might notice a couple of strange things you might not have seen before if you're a fan of Metal Gear. Tyler has skipped the codec call, and he's got a weapon already. This is the MP5. It is a silenced submachine gun that has infinite ammo. It does still need to be reloaded, and it is exclusive to the very easy difficulty. Now, if you're also thinking, hang on, I don't remember a very easy difficulty, a very easy is exclusive to the integral version of the game. The integral version is what makes up the PC version. On the PlayStation, integral was only ever released in Japan. So if you're a big PlayStation fan of the original Metal Gear Solid, you will have never seen this unless you bought a Japanese copy. What Tyler's doing right now is he is alert farming. So later on in the game, there's a point where he needs to have a certain number of alerts in order for a certain thing to happen. We'll talk more about that when it happens. So right now, he is just making sure that he gets an alert from this guard. He then runs away, and as soon as that evasion timer has ended, he can get a new alert, and that will increase his alert count by 1.
I think that'll be the last one. Yep, that'll be the last one. Yeah, so with the PC version also, you will begin to notice that things are a bit more broken than they maybe first seem, due to a lot of, we'll say, added on features, and that some of them we have taken full advantage of to kind of break the game from the inside out.
So the first major one that you would have already seen, and you'll see throughout the run, is that Tyler will never open the weapon menu. The PC version comes exclusively with weapon hotkeys, so the numbers 1 to 0 across the top of the keyboard each correspond to a different weapon. In the case of the MP5, it is the number 2, which also grabs the FAMAS in other difficulties. So that's the end of the dock area. And now he's going to make his way through the heliport and into the facility. Again, there you'll see that you can very, very quickly skip through these codecs and cutscenes. There is almost no loading time on the PC version when it comes to cutscenes, and as a result, the PC version is much faster than the PlayStation version. Getting through there okay?
So you will begin to notice that I had taken some damage, and that's actually quite intentional. Normally, you wouldn't want to be taking damage, but for this route specifically, you actually want to take damage because you want to eat the ketchup. I know that normally you would place down the ketchup, but it'll make a lot more sense once we get to that point very, very soon.
So now's probably a good time to explain one of the tools that Tyler's going to be using throughout this run, and it's called the Area Reloader. The Area Reloader is a development tool that allows the current room to be reloaded, but the state of the game remains the same. So for example, if you run into a room, go and pick up an ammo box, and then use the area reloader, Snake will return to the start of the room, but he'll still have the ammo. The area reloader used to only be used as a save file. We used to be able to create a blank save file and use that save file to trigger the area reload. But recently, thanks to some developments from our community developer B-Man, we've now found that we can use it as well as other tools in the run. And you're going to see the first new trick that we found with the area reloader right here. This is called the elevator reload. It's actually a trick I discovered. So watch very carefully what happens. As he's going up the elevator, Tyler's going to be mashing the area reload key, which is F7. And you'll notice that he's now appeared out of bounds. Now, watch very carefully, because this is another blink and you'll miss it moment. That's an area reload. Then Tyler's going to wait for this mini cutscene to end, eat the ketchup, and Johnny's already there to come back. So, what just happened? So, the elevator reload, and Johnny has now teleported back over. The area reloader does some very, very funky things, and in very easy, we're allowed to use it to make these funky things happen. The reason you don't see the area reloader used in other categories is because very easy is the only category that doesn't give you an in-game time at the end of the game. It's the only category we run in real time. And so, as a community, it's accepted that we're allowed to use tricks that might mess with the in-game time in very easy because we don't know what it is and it doesn't matter. So what happened when Tyler first came in was that the game triggers the next event taking place after certain events have already happened. In the case of Otacon turning up to give Snake the ketchup and the card key, the event that needs to have taken place is a codec call must have happened. And then just here, Tyler is going to swim. Oh, he just messes up the swim getting out of the room there. That's a trick that was found and is used in all categories on the PC version. It's called Swim, Swapping Weapons Infinite Momentum, and it allows Snake to continue moving whilst when we lose control of him. You will see it again later. But to go back to the area reloader, to get through capture very, very quickly, you want to reload after making a codec call. That is then going to speed everything up and progress you on further. Here's the next use of the area reloader there. So you saw there, exactly as I explained at the start, what Tyler did is he grabbed the PSG-1. As soon as he grabbed the PSG-1, he then used the area reloader to teleport him back to the start of the room, but the game state is kept intact, and therefore he still has the PSG-1 as he leaves.
Okay. Don't want to blow up to the mines there, just equipping the ration real quick just in case. Alright, and now, as you will begin to notice, things are kind of weird since we kind of have to go through the rest of the game, and it'll treat us as if we are beating all these bosses, even though they're nowhere to be seen, obviously. And
quick use of the area reloader there. Tyler's able to, as soon as Snake's health bar has finished increasing, he can use the area reloader just to skip the rest of it. We can use the area reloader in this room here. As soon as that codec call's over, uses the area reloader because Snake's position has been saved after that codec, but the guards' positions all change. And they all reset to how the room started, and that makes this room just a little bit easier. It is possible to get through this room without using the area reloader there, but it is quite tricky and it has to be done very quickly. So it's much safer to use the area reloader there. So we're going to see it again here as we go into the room here. Remember, we skipped straight into torture. So as Tyler said, the game already thinks that we've beaten Mantis. So as soon as we come in here, we get the life up for beating Mantis. Next, you're going to see a tried and tested use of the weapon hotkeys. This isn't a new trick. This is a trick we've been using for a very long time. It's called GME, or God Mode Exploit. And basically what we do is by using weapon hotkeys, we cancel the animation of Snake equipping the PSG-1, and that allows Tyler here to skip triggers, go out of bounds, and wrap around the level to get through very, very quickly indeed.
All right, and now the brand new skip. Some of you may know if you've been following around some like IGN GameSpot. They had covered this. This is the Boba Skip coming up, and I will let Nick explain that because that's a whole other thing in itself.
So the Boba Skip, this isn't exclusive to Very Easy, but it's the thing that finally made Very Easy doable in less than half an hour. What this trick is it is causing Snake to take damage and play out a specific animation. There's about a 50-50 chance on which damage animation Snake will take. One of those animations causes his hitbox to increase in size, and because the trigger for this door is slightly closer to the edge of the door than other doors, we can use it in order to get outside quickly. Now, unfortunately luck was not on Tyler's side and he didn't get the right animation, so he needs to try again. So it's standing in a position, he's still not managed it, unfortunately. He's got another stun grenade that he can use. Just might cause some issues later, but we'll see. So it's about standing in the exact position. So he's using first person to line himself up. There we go. Oh, okay. That was nice.
I'm gonna need to grab the C4 here as a backup now, because I need to be running with the weapon.
So Snake moves faster whilst running with a weapon equipped, and also Tyler's going to need to have two weapons in order to use GME, because he's going to be using it again here. You'll notice here that he didn't grab the Stinger launcher. We don't need the Stinger launcher at all in the game. So here's the issue with GME. Usually when we do GME, we use 0 and 9. So 0 is to equip the PSG-1, and then we cancel the PSG-1 by hitting 9, which is chaff grenade. Unfortunately, Tyler used all of his chaff grenades trying to get the Boba Skip. So he's now having to try and override his own muscle memory by going 0-7 and using C4 instead. And he's going to do that here as well. So that's the Wolf Skip. That uses a combination of GME to avoid taking damage, and then also swim in order to keep moving forwards through the invisible barrier. That was another trick that was very, very quickly discovered after swim was discovered earlier this year.
It's like I wasn't too far in the door there. There we go. Okay.
There we go.
Slight error.
I think you need to let the door close behind you.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay.
So again, this is Tyler's in a bit of an awkward position here because, as I said, muscle memory is making him want to go 0-9 in order to do GME, and he's having to adapt and go 0-7, which it doesn't sound difficult, but when you've been playing this game for as long as some of us have, just a single key change can be quite jarring. So next we have the cargo fight. Using GME. Should have mentioned this before. GME makes you completely invulnerable. Snake can't take damage whilst he's in GME. So that makes this fight pretty trivial. It makes later fights in the game pretty trivial. We're actually going to fight a boss in a second. The very first boss of the game. Raven is coming up, and thanks to GME, it's we just don't take damage, and it is very, very easy to do. That gun turret is RNG based on where it's aiming at. Sometimes you get shot, sometimes you won't. Okay, now we actually have Tyler has a slight moment of time to take his breath and recover.
Yeah, so like pretty much like, for like the first 15 minutes or so, it's just and pretty much Nick just having to commentate nonstop just because there's just so much going on in so little time. But now we get a slight breather, and coming up here we will have a lot of more breaks coming up before we get to the climax at the very end. But yeah, this game is very, very front heavy on stuff going on.
Don't be fooled by the fact that this is very easy. Because of all of these extra techniques and the area reloader that we use, this category is quite taxing because there's so much more going on. I think it's probably fair to say that Extreme is still more difficult because there's a lot of routing differences you have to do with Extreme, but I would say that very easy is a more difficult category than easy by far. So this is Raven. We kill Raven with grenades, and all Tyler's gonna do here is just gonna time out his grenades exactly for when he needs to throw the next one at Raven. He can't just spam them out because Raven does have iframes, so he's just timing his grenade throws so that as soon as he knows that Raven's iframes are going to end, he's going to throw the next grenade and it's going to explode at the right time. He's also going to finish him off with the M5 because he's only got a slight sliver of health left. And that's the first boss.
But not the last one.
Certainly not the last one.
Alright, gonna muscle memory back. Give me those shaft grenades. I missed them.
It's very handy that there's a pack of chaff grenades there. So now Tyler's going to be able to do GME using 09, and he shouldn't have to worry too much about trying to find a different key to use.
Yeah, for sure. That was a bit spooky, and I just had to rewire my entire thought process. I gotta do 7 now. This is awkward.
Of course, when you're going for PB runs, if your Boba Skip goes badly as it did there, you'd probably reset. But obviously, you don't want to do that in a marathon setting.
Yeah, of course.
All right, coming up here, Tyler's going to be entering the command room, and it's at this point where the alert farming from the very start of the game finally pays off. There is a mechanic in the game where Snake loses the PAL key that he's had to collect, and if you have 11 or more alerts as you enter the room where you grab the PAL key from, then
no, it's okay. We got plenty of health to tank. It's okay.
If you have 11 or more alerts as you enter that room, the PAL key will be dropped in one of 7 random locations in the ditch. It's completely RNG as to where it's going to be. There's really good ones, there's really bad ones, so we're hoping for some good RNG here. If Tyler went down into this room with less than 11 alerts, then a rat will have eaten the key instead, and you have to find and kill the rat. And at least 3 positions of the PAL key are faster than finding the best rat. The rat also appears in a few random locations. So yeah, technically it's better to use it's better to gather those alerts throughout the game. It's not like you're doing anything in the docks at the time anyway. And we're also going to see another use of the area reloader here. Once Tyler's grabbed the key, he's going to be able to use the area reloader to go back. Oh, unfortunately, he got the bomb, which he's going to have to throw away, but there's the PAL key. So he's now going to be able to use the area reloader to go back, but very important that he didn't use the area reloader until the PAL key word had disappeared. So when he grabbed the PAL key, the word PAL key showed up where the item was. If you use the area reloader before that text disappears, you will softlock the game because it will take Snake back to the ladder as it did, but Snake won't have the PAL key in his inventory and it will no longer be in the ditch. It just disappears and you've softlocked the game.
And making our way back, and as you know, we have to go here 3 times, once with the normal key, once with the cooldown key, and once with the hot key. So essentially from this point on up until later on, things will be pretty much going back and forth here. There won't be a whole lot going on, so if you would like any donation readouts, now would be a really good time because we do have a bit of a downtime here.
Well, unfortunately, I do not have any donations to read right now, but let's do a couple things. First of all, let's put a donate link into chat so that folks know how to do that. If you want to make sure to donate and put your name and a donation comment on there, I will read it live on air. Let's talk about what we've got coming up next. Right now, you're watching Metal Gear Solid. Being run by Tyler2022. Coming up next, we have a run of Sky Gunner by J ? After that, it's going to be a bit of a setup block, so just a few minutes, just kind of regroup. And then after that, we have a Rise of Lufia 2, Rise of the Sinistrals by Ellison. And that one actually has some naming bid wars associated with it. So if you would like to name any of the 5 characters in that game, those would be Maxim, Dekar, Artie, Guy, and Darby. You can go ahead and donate there. Be sure to let us know what name you want to use for those. There's a 5-character limit for that. And yeah, so you can put your donations toward those incentives as well as many others. And in fact, you know, I can go ahead and list those here in the chat. And then just know that all of the donations that you give here are going toward an organization called Take This. Take This is a mental health nonprofit, and their main mission is to inform the gaming community about mental health issues, provide education on different disorders and prevention techniques, and reduce the overall stigma around mental illness. So definitely a very, very worthwhile cause. Let's get those donations in. Give me something to do just to be able to read things on air and give some love to the community. So yeah, let's get those donations in.
All right, and just double checking that I indeed did cool down the card. I believe it's 61 seconds in each room that you have to wait.
It is indeed 61 seconds to freeze the POW key, and then another 61 seconds when we go down to the blast furnace to heat it. So Tyler wasn't just hanging around there for no reason.
Yep. Little audio cue in the music to like know when to check for the key, or if you have a speedrun timer, just look at the timer as well. It could be another thing you could do.
So unfortunately, the whole POW key sequence is still like the holy grail of Metal Gear Solid 1 speedrun skips. It is the one thing that people have been trying to find for years and still hasn't been found. There is a significant bounty available in the MGSR community. So if you think that you might have some ideas or you want to give it a crack and would like to win some money, then please come and join us. Come and find this skip, because we really, really want to find it one day.
Yep, because otherwise we will have to be doing this over and over again, which, you know, first couple of times it's not too bad, but, you know, trying to like grind for this game, definitely on like PvP pace, this can get a little daunting, and especially because, you know, once we're done with this, we still have some more game to play, and it's not, you know, necessarily free. A lot of people kind of see PC as being, you know, oh, you have GME, or like in this case, you have the like, area reload, so it's a bit more easier, but one thing is always persistent, and that's Liquid. You can never escape Liquid. He'll always be there.
The only difference between categories on Liquid is how many times you punch him, but the setup and stuff is still the same. Now's probably a good time to explain a little bit more about the history of the area reloader. So I said earlier that originally the area reloader was a blank save file. So if you saved the game a certain number of times, you'd create this blank save file, and the number of saves you'd have to do would vary by your machine. So it wasn't very user-friendly. And we, as a community, we provided the blank save file so that you could have it from the start. There was also another trick which we don't use as much anymore. It gets used a little bit more in all bosses, but it's also a risky trick. It's called alt-tabbing. Because the game is played in full screen mode, we can skip certain lines of dialogue by tabbing out of the game and tabbing back into it. Unfortunately, because Windows is Windows, and because Metal Gear Solid 1 PC is a really, really janky port, it can actually lose you time. What you want to happen is you want the game to still show. You lose focus of it and go straight back into it, and that will skip the line of dialogue. But if the game minimizes, then you then have to wait. You then have to alt-tab and wait for the game to maximize out again, and that loses you time. So it's quite risky. And for that reason, and using the blank save file, this wasn't a very friendly run. It was all very much dependent on how well your machine could manage it. But our community, as I said earlier, our community developer B-Man did a little bit of work with it. There are cheats available in the game. There's a cheat function if you just add -cheats enable to the end of the command line when running the game, you enable a bunch of in-game cheats, and the area reloader is actually one of those cheats. Now, we don't allow any other cheats being ran in the game, but the reason why this has always been a problem is because you couldn't use the function key cheats. We call them the function key cheats because they're from F1 across to F8. You couldn't use them and use weapon hotkeys at the same time, and we just couldn't get away from using, because weapon hotkeys allow us to use GME, it allows us to skip huge portions of the game. And so, you know, we never used the function key cheats to use this area reloader instead. But B-Man managed to find a way within the game's files to disable the disabling of the weapon hotkeys when function key cheats were enabled. So now we do have a very slightly modified version of the game that allows us to play like this and use the function key cheats and the weapon hotkeys at the same time. So it is important to note that this isn't a straight out of the box copy of MGS1 PC. It does have a fan patch, but the community are all very happy with that, and it makes the run far more interesting, and also allows us to use the area reloader in places we couldn't before, because before we were limited to only using it whenever we could pause the game and load a save. Now we can use it during cutscenes, we can use it during points where we don't have control of Snake, we can use it as we arrive in an elevator, which is how we got the elevator reload skip. And there, Tyler, you just saw him. He's just checked his PAL key. PAL key is heated, and we are now on our way to the finale.
Yep. So a lot to talk about for this game, but you know, this game, or well, rather, for this run, you know, while it is kind of short, there is a lot behind the scenes that goes into this game. It's not so cut and dry as like, oh, just do GME and like have fun. There's actually a lot more to it than that, especially on very easy. It's just layers and layers of like complexity with the run.
It's also worth noting that there's two major versions of the PC version. There's the Good Old Games release, or GOG version as we call it, and there's also the Reddit Oxide patch. And because of the way that the GOG release does full screen, you can't Alt-Tab out and in to do the dialogue skip on the GOG version. So for very easy, we tend to play with the Reddit Oxide version. That itself is a fan patch, because the original retail, I have a retail copy of the original disc, and I've tried installing it on my Windows 10 PC, and it just doesn't work. You cannot run the original version of this game on a modern PC. So we have to use fan patches anyway in order to get the game to work in the first place. So then having a community patch that also allows us to use these extra tools doesn't seem so far-fetched.
And I want to say, I think one person in the community has ran on the official CD-ROM, but that was on Windows 7. I don't know if they tried to get on Windows 10, but they did run it on Windows 7. But yeah, I mean, and for some other, like, you know, slight background history, the actual PC port was made by like 5 people, and like Konami didn't really give them any help in like making it, and like so much in fact that in this game, there is pirated audio that the like creators had to find off of like, you know, random websites to then insert into the game. So there's a lot of like music that's a bit messed up, but thankfully, again, through B-Man in the like community launcher, a lot of that is fixed. But yeah, the PC port is not very intuitive at first glance, unfortunately.
If you're looking at playing Metal Gear Solid casually for the first time, please go and find a PlayStation 1. Go and rip a copy onto an emulator. Just play the PS1 version. If you want to play a casual playthrough of this game, the PC version is not a good port at all. It makes for some absolutely fantastic speedrunning. All right, so we are now finally getting towards the end of the run. So Snake is going to input the hot PAL key, and then he needs to call Otacon in order to get Otacon to open the door. And then the next boss fight is Metal Gear Rex, and make sure you don't look away from the screen, because you're going to see Rex beaten very, very quickly. If you recall, Tyler didn't grab the Stinger launcher, and that's what you have to use to beat Rex. But we have an even greater tool. We have the area reloader.
All right, and it's done.
And that's Metal Gear Rex. As I said when Tyler was in prison earlier, each event is triggered by a previous event, and the event for Rex moving through the stages is just simply that the previous stage has started. So by using the area reloader, we immediately skip to the next stage and just skip through Metal Gear Rex. Now we come to the liquid fight. Tyler will not be able to hear me or the game audio right now. He will have muted himself so that he can't hear anything, because he's going to be setting up for an infinite combo. So what he's going to do is he's going to put liquid into a very specific position over here on the right, and then he's going to use a rhythm of punches in order to do what we call the liquid infinite. And he's got this off really, really nicely. By constant, it's sort of a tap, 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 tap kind of rhythm, and by doing that, we keep liquids locked into position, and that was absolutely perfect.
Thank you. And actually, I forgot to like deafen, so I like had you on in the background anyway, but that's fine because I'm like used to having sound on, because I'm like one of the weird ones in the community that actually prefers sound. A lot of people, they like take off their like headphones, they stare down at a controller, but I just prefer sound on. If my sound's off, it just feels weird. I don't know why. Also, we have the barrel ending, you know, because we actually got the like ninja cutscene at the prison cell, which is also abnormal. Usually you would have the Otacon ending, but for this run specifically, you actually get the Meryl ending.
Even very easy all bosses, which is the category where you have to defeat every boss in the game as well. Even that's not a kind of ending. This is the only category in the entire of Metal Gear Solid across console and PC that it is actually faster to save Meryl. And the reason for that is because we never submit to torture. In a standard any percent run, you'd skip the first stage of torture by using the vent glitch to get past the first stage very quickly. But you then still have to go into the second stage of torture, submit to it, and then come back out. Because we use the area reloader, we skip past the second one as well. So Snake has never submitted to torture, and therefore Meryl ending.
And just as a heads up, time will happen on the Fate to Wyatt. So that'll be coming up very soon.
As we said before, there's no in-game timer shown at the end of the game, so it is done in RTA. This section looks like an auto scroller, but it isn't. You have to hit liquid a certain number of times, and if you can hit him really well, particularly during scene transitions, so where he transitions from one style of attack and to another, if you can get those transitions in, just missed that one. You got the second one. Then it can rapidly speed up this section. So he's going to hit him here, and then they're going to join up together, 2 more hits, and that should be it. There we go. And
time. And just to show that there will be no score screen, I'm going to skip through all this. Now, typically on the console version, you won't be able to do this, but on PC, you can actually skip credits, which is kind of rare in Metal Gear Solid games. But as you can see here, it'll bring us back to the main menu. So, no score screen. I guess they're like, you know, you're on very easy, so it's like you don't deserve one, I guess, or, you know, however it may be. But that was Metal Gear Solid 1, everyone. Thank you so much for letting me show this off, and special thanks to Nick for doing commentary, because he did pretty much most of the work, because there's a lot to talk about, so I do appreciate that.
And if you're interested in running this game or any other game in the Metal Gear series, then please go to speedrun.com, go and find any Metal Gear Solid game on speedrun.com, and you'll find a link to the MGSR Discord server. We're a huge community of runners who are always looking to help new runners get into the series.
Alrighty,
All right.
well, thank you very much for that run. Be sure to follow Tyler on Twitch. We got a link in there in chat to give him a follow for what he has done here. And thank you also, Nick, for doing commentary for that run. So, yeah, so that's going to do it for me as far as hosting for right now. I'm going to hand it off to RPG Valkyrie and just fantastic human being. That would be Keishira. So enjoy the time that you spend with Kay here, and I'll be sure to see you all in chat throughout the week. So thanks so much for having me, and take care.
Nuclear weapons disposal facility on Shadow Moses Island and Alaska's Fox Ark.